Hey everyone, good afternoon, good morning from wherever you're at in the world. I'm Marquise Francis, a correspondent for NBC News. Stay tuned and welcome to our next level summit panel on the power of mentorship and sponsorship. In this conversation, we're going to dive into the relationships and how to make the most of them. We'll discuss finding mentors and sponsors. We'll even define them a bit for you. We'll talk about building connections, the concept of self mentorship, and the benefits of guiding others. We'll have four wonderful panelists who will be sharing their own experiences and insights. They're also here to answer your questions. So please use the Q&A tab to the right of your screen to submit questions for our panelists, and we'll answer them here live. So let's meet our panelists, and they have a really dynamic resume. We're only able to fit in a couple words right now, but I'm sure you will get to know them a lot more in the coming few minutes. First up, we have Roxanne Vargas, anchor at NBC6 News in Miami. Next, we have B. Monet, a filmmaker, director of Black Girls, a new documentary available exclusively on Comcast Black Experience on Xfinity platform. Next, we have Justin Peach, a senior producer and editor at NBCU Entertainment Creative and Marketing. And last but not least, DeAndre Marshall, a media arts apprentice at Urgent Inc. And just so you all know, Justin is one of DeAndre's mentors that met through NBC Universal's Creative Impact Lab, a program that pairs nonprofit creative agencies with NBCU employees who advise them and mentor their apprentices as they produce marketing videos for the company's nonprofit partners. We have a video about their connection in DeAndre's mentorship journey from NBCU Academy storyteller Jay Valle. Let's take a look.
The title of your biopic, the one that you're gonna direct and star in one day, the title will be?
I think it would be DeAndre Marshall, The Visionary.
I like the sound of that too.
Yeah, I like it.
They say it takes a village to raise a child, but for DeAndre Marshall, it took a community of mentors to light his career path.
I feel like if I didn't really have mentorship, I really wouldn't know where I could be, honestly.
Ready and action.
Today, 24-year-old Marshall is a producer and videographer. Growing up in Miami's Little Haiti neighborhood, he always thought filmmaking was a far-off dream.
If I told my 15, 16-year-old self you're gonna be doing film and directing stuff, I would not believe it at all.
Marshall credits Urgent Inc. with teaching him storytelling skills and getting his filmmaking start at age 16.
The reason why I can actually see myself outside of Miami because they can see me outside of Miami.
For 30 years, Urgent has been empowering young creative minds in Miami's most vulnerable neighborhoods, offering programs in digital media arts, workforce education, and most importantly, community mentorship.
With DeAndre, I try to tell him it's about the journey, not so much of the destination. So eventually we're all going to get to that destination, but are you enjoying that journey? What are you doing that's making you impactful? What are you doing for your community? What are you doing for others?
Urgent not only connects apprentices like Marshall with mentors like Lamar, but also with industry professionals who can offer portfolio building opportunities. Through NBC Universal's Creative Impact Lab, Marshall was connected with Justin Peach, a producer and editor at NBC.
So things are going well?
Yeah, things are going really good actually so far.
Working with DeAndre was amazing. I'm so thankful I had the opportunity to work with him. He has such a rich creative vision, and that really shines through in his work.
Last year, through Creative Impact Lab, Marshall and other apprentices had the opportunity to produce a TV commercial for a nonprofit that benefits Latino professionals. But more than a job, Peach offered Marshall advice about building confidence and shaking off imposter syndrome.
And then, I was like, how do I get rid of this nervousness? Like, this is a big project. I've never done anything as this big before. He just told me to have fun, and it may sound like just a simple thing, but it really wasn't at the time because I was just too self-conscious. I was like, man, what if I mess up?
Now, Marshall tries to pay it forward, hosting multimedia workshops for local high schoolers.
You're mentoring high school students. Just a few blocks away from here at Urgent, what are you hoping to share with them that's been shared with you?
I really want them to just be creative. That's the main thing I want. I want them to think outside the box and think how they can create the things they would want to create.
Working with his mentors and his mentees inspired Marshall to create a short film titled Hope Harmony about the power of resilience. The project was funded by a $5,000 grant he won in an essay competition for NBC. showing how every opportunity is interconnected.
I want them to just remember this film in general, you know, as a reminder that anything really is possible if you just, you know, actually just try it out.
Thank you so much to NBCU Academy associate producer Jay Valle, who reported that piece for NBCU Academy's new vertical, Storytellers. DeAndre, I want to start with you. First off, I see you don't go anywhere without that scooter. So I see you flying around Miami with that, I'm sure. But on a serious note, let's get into the conversation. So can you share more about how having mentors like Joey and Justin helped broaden your sense of what was possible for your future?
I want to say, like, basically with the advice that Joey and Justin give me, and with Joey too, like more, because I worked with him since I was young and he's been giving me advice forever. But I think the main thing with giving advice and being a mentor, for me, it just gave me more of a sense of belief in myself. It made me more confident that I could get things done. Like I said earlier, for the commercial, it was a big project. How do I get over it? Justin said, have fun, you know, and that's the main thing I like to do on sets. It's the main thing I like to do about my craft and filmmaking in general is have fun. And that at that time, I literally forgot it, you know, and having fun made me believe in myself more. So I think it's really more, just more about self-belief.
Yeah, I appreciate that. And I think oftentimes we can get caught up in our day-to-day, and something as simple as being told have fun can really make the world of a difference. Justin, turning to you, as a mentor, how did your work with DeAndre and other apprentices at Urgent Inc. impact or change you?
I mean, it's just such an energizing experience. It just, you know, brings me so much joy to, you know, to work with amazing people like DeAndre, and you know, just thankful and grateful for that, and you know, all the happiness that it brought. But yeah, I would say joy and happiness is the impact that it has.
We're going to keep that theme going. Roxy, turning to you. So you're an anchor and reporter at NB6 in Miami, but you didn't start in the newsroom. Can you tell us a bit about your career journey and the role mentors played in it?
I'm going to abbreviate it for you. Yeah, I'm so fortunate. I started here October 6, 2003. That is a date I will never forget, because it's a date really that my life changed personally and certainly professionally. I actually didn't start with NBC6. We have a duopoly. I'm coming to you live virtually from the NBC6 and Telemundo 51 newsroom. We function here in different languages, English and Spanish, serving the South Florida community and beyond. So I actually started here in 2003 in a department called Creative Services, promotions, programming, public relations, and production as well. Working for Telemundo 51, but still dabbling on both sides. And that was in 2003. And I started because I got my foot in the door, right? You hear that phrase a lot, get your foot in the door. And that's exactly what I did while going to school full time at FIU. Shout out to the Panthers, Florida International University. And then it's you got to pay attention to the world around you, right? And you have to listen. And I always try to make very clear, to myself, first and foremost, like, let's be very clear. You have to be clear about where you are. Where do you stand right now, and where do you want to be? Where do you see yourself? And once you've established that vision in honesty and trajectory, find who that person might be, right? I knew I wanted to work in the newsroom. So I started to make the moves that I felt I needed to move to get there. So Creative Services was a great place to start because it was my handshake moment with the community, not the community here in the newsroom on both stations, with NBC6 and Telemundo 51, and my handshake moment with the outside community, which is what we do as journalists, right? In front of the camera, behind the camera, as creatives, we serve the community with news and information. And then I started weaving my way into the newsroom, and we're talking about mentorship and sponsorship. We're going to establish a difference in a little bit, but you have to, in order to find that mentor, you need to share your story. I know my story, but I can't assume that just because I work in the same building with you that you know my story. So you have to make yourself visible, and that's what I did. I made an appointment with my with my news director at the time, who is not only I'll say mentor, sure, but an incredible friend and a family member that I say she is my family. And I told her my story. I told her where I was, and I told her where I wanted to be, and I said, one day I want to work with you and for you. And then fast forward to 2005, Hurricane Katrina, so many people might know, Hurricane Wilma really impacted South Florida here. And when we're in wall-to-wall coverage servicing the community, that's when I stepped up and did a little Q&A with some anchors here. So knowing I wanted to be a reporter, I wanted to service my community journalistically in this space, right, broadcast media, I said, I did a little Q&A, and that's when I became a project. They were like, where did that come from? I was like, I told you. Remember that meeting I had with you saying, I want to work for you one day? This was the moment where all that listening and questioning and paying attention really served itself. And at that point, when you're given that opportunity, that's when you take with it, and that's when you run with it, and try to step up and make a difference and make good on on everything that you said.
Yeah.
So that's the then keep talking.
No, thank you for that. Fast forward nearly 2 decades later, 3 Emmys, a bunch of other awards. It's safe to say that project is going quite well. But I want to key in on something you mentioned, because you mentioned mentors and sponsors. And I think oftentimes people can sometimes conflate the two. But can you share kind of the difference between a mentor and a sponsor, an example of how sponsorship helped your career?
Yeah, and I think that's important, because I don't think we talk about sponsorship enough. Here at NBC Universal, we have an incredible internship program. Here and I keep in touch with a lot of our interns regularly, and it's really such a gift, right, to have our interns here, and then to continue that relationship once they go beyond, and continue that relationship. That's a key word. When it comes to sponsorship, that's when you're really buying in. And I'm going to use an example that I think anybody on any platform will understand. I'm a baseball mom. I got 2 kiddos, 8 and 10, right? So think about when you have your baseball team, right? And you need a sponsor, you need somebody, a company, an individual to say, I believe in you enough that I'm going to sponsor you. I'm going to put my name on the back of your jersey. And every day that you hit the baseball diamond, every time that you're practicing, you're going to show up. And I believe that you're going to show up and you're going to give it everything you have. And I believe in you so much, I'm going to sponsor you. I'm going to sponsor you with my time. I'm going to sponsor you with my conversation, right? And really, time is it. You're going to show up for the game. Sure, there's a check you're going to write, right? When I'm talking about baseball specifically, but I'm going to give you my time, and I believe in you enough. And that's what a sponsor is. Beyond mentoring, when you're mentoring someone, it's a day-to-day conversation if you're lucky, right? It's touching base. It's I'm not sure what my next move is in my career. Should I do this? Can you take a look at my reel? How's my writing? Can you listen to my presentation, to my delivery? Sponsorship is a conversation beyond that. It's not a conversation with you. It's a conversation with other individuals who have the power to endorse you and to take your career to another level. A sponsor is somebody who believes in you, in your commitment to your craft, whatever that is, in whatever space that is. It says, I'm going to speak about you in another room with other power makers, and we're going to take your career to the next level. I'm going to put my name on your shirt because I know that what you bring to the table is going to make a difference on a big scale. And it's really, it's signing, it's a full buy-in. It's a full buy-in, and it's a relationship. I just mentioned to you a few minutes ago about my mentor, and she's not just a mentor. She's a dear friend. And when we pick up, it's like no time has passed. And that's how that mentorship becomes sponsorship, and sponsorship just becomes a really beautiful relationship that you have to nourish and you keep revisiting and you grow together. And it's really powerful, and it's really beautiful.
Thank you for that, Roxy. And I think pretty much to sum it up, right? Mentorship and sponsorship can look so different. And I think they evolve over time. That mentorship can be that one-to-one relationship, but sponsorship is really, what is someone going to say about you, possibly when you're not in the room, when who is really buying into you. So I think building up that organic relationship however you can, and actually presenting yourself in a way that people really want to go to bat for you and possibly put some dollars behind you.
Yeah.
And speaking of that, B. Monet, turning to you, you're an award-winning filmmaker, as I mentioned on the top, who just released your first feature documentary, Black Girls. Here's a clip of the trailer.
told that I could be granted time, but they would not tie it to pregnancy. And to me, that just wasn't okay.
There are a lot of young girls that haven't developed the resilience yet. And I thought, oh, hell no.
This poem is about joy. It's not about water remnants, evaporation, or sand, or thirst, or dry fruit, or hinges, or being hung today. A black woman could smoke a cigarette, could laugh. This poem is about joy, how we remember it in us, always.
Man, I watched that for the first time. I got hyped myself. I saw Alice and Felix at the top. That was really dope. The full film was available on Comcast Black Experience on Xfinity. And if you're not an Xfinity customer, you can say Black Experience into your voice remote. And if you're not, you can use the link at the chat to watch Black Girls on free on Xumo, Play streaming app. So B, this is another accolade for you in a career that's included working with big names like Reese Witherspoon and Janet Jackson, and big brands like Levi's and Uber. But you've had to achieve a lot of this success, build your own career without the help of a mentor. So as a result, you've had to practice what's called self-mentoring, and something I could definitely resonate with, where you took charge of your own self-awareness and found a way to advance your own development. How did you use self-mentoring to get where you are today?
Yeah. And thank you so much for just being here. It's just I'm so grateful to be on such a beautiful panel, and I'm learning some things myself. So thank you guys for sharing your experiences as well. For me, I just knew kind of coming into film school that I may have to work a little bit harder. And so I kind of took that mindset and just ran with it. So a lot of times I'd be in the editing room sleeping like late nights, sometimes having to bring an extra, pair of clothes with me, doing bird baths in the bathroom. Like I'll spare you the details, but I just feel like I had to be in the weeds. You know what I mean? Like I knew that no one in my family really comes from film. So I knew that if I really wanted to be successful at this, I was going to have to like really, really go big or go home. And, even my parents, they've changed now, but when I told them that I want to be a filmmaker instead of going into journalism or public policy, they were just like, you really want to be a starving artist? Like, how does that work? But I think now they have, changed their mind, luckily, but I kind of had to, do all the things of, watching other movies, watching my films down, rewriting scripts, listening, all the things with scripts, watching movies that I had never heard of before. Like, I think it's like a lot of skills all at once. And I think I just kind of just went all in. And so I think I credit all of that to where I am now. And I would say to anyone who may not have a mentor that you might just have to do those things of just exposing yourself and putting yourself out there and making things that aren't great and failing. I think we're in a time where we just want to kind of have this secret sauce and just know, like, how do I just get to this place where B might be at, or where Roxanne or DeAndre is? Like, no, be you, and be you to the nth degree. That's what I would say. But I think there's also, if you're a storyteller, you probably have something in your makeup and your fabric that makes you special. And I think honing in on that makes you a unique storyteller. And I think finding ways to just make that amazing is what makes you stand out.
Yeah, thank you for that. And I think another thing with self-mentorship, you mentioned looking at films and different things. I know for myself, I also didn't have anyone in my family who was in journalism, right? I'm going to school with folks who their uncle and aunts and cousins are in the industry, and they can kind of pull them up. And so for me, it was a lot of finding different programs or just looking at people once I'm in these internships. And so I'm just curious when it comes specifically to filmmaking, because we may have some people on this call, you kind of alluded to with that question in terms of, hey, I want to be like B. Monet. But it's like, what can they do now where they may not be able to reach you today, but they can kind of do to prepare themselves and they do have an opportunity to connect with you?
I mean, I'm very accessible, but I hear you. But also, I feel like it's the annoying thing that a lot of folks have said, right? Like when Ava DuVernay is like, you have a camera, you have a phone, make something. And you're like, yeah, but I want to make something like Dune. I want to make Christopher Nolan stuff. Like, how do I do that? But the thing is, like, your taste might be up here, but your skill level may still need to be honed in. So I say make a lot of stuff and fail at it. Like, I know it is annoying because it's like, ugh, I don't want to do that. But you have to start somewhere. And I feel like watching a lot of foreign movies, a lot of foreign ads, just getting your hands on as much stuff. We live in an era where, you can watch, a Korean film or a Polish film. Like, you don't necessarily have to like wait like how it used to be. So I think just getting your hands on so many other things and being open to what storytelling might look like from different filmmakers all over the world, I think is going to set you apart. And finding like little gems from different filmmakers and even like image makers, like photographers, other type of artists, I think will just make the person stand out. So I say all that in a very long, rounded way, just to say, make stuff, fail at it. It doesn't have to be great, but it will be great one day. And I think just keeping that in mind definitely helps.
Thank you for that. Thank you. I want to get to some of these audience questions. And Justin, I'm going to turn to you first. So from Ashley Bank, she asks, can you share a specific mentorship experience that had a significant impact on your professional development?
Yeah, it's funny because, in one way or another, my mentors always taught me to have fun with what you're doing. And that's what I told DeAndre, and that seems to have resonated with him as well. So I would have to say that's the most important thing that I've been taught over the years, is that you got to have fun. And if I find I'm not having a level of fun with what I'm doing, then that's an indicator to me to take a step back and ask myself why it's not fun.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. And DeAndre, we have a pre-submitted question from Caitlin Reginden from Langston University. And she wants to know, what do you believe it takes to be a great mentor to someone else? Because we saw in that film, you went from mentee to mentor real quick. So what does it take for you to be a great mentor?
I really think for what it takes to be a great mentor, not a good or an okay mentor, but great, it's just, you got to have the mentee's trust. You have to have their trust. If you say you're going to go to their, football game, or you're going to go support them in any sort of way, you go. If you say you're going to do something, you got to do it. It just always, and also having a just positive relationship with them and with the mentee in general too. There's like many things, but I think, the most important one, if you give me like literally 5 seconds.
Take your time, Pastor. Take your time.
Yeah, sorry. I'll really just say, just have hope in them, and they'll have hope in you. If that makes any sense. Like, like you have to believe in them more than you even believe in yourself and things, And I think that's what I think there's a lot of things that helps it show what it takes to become a great mentor. But I think those are like the most important things. Just, trust,
Absolutely. And the truth is I don't have any kids, but from what I've heard from people that do have children, while there may be books and kind of tips and tricks, you kind of have to do it, right? And then get better at it and learn. You're constantly evolving in that mentorship portion. So you may not be able to be perfect at the start, but that's kind of what makes it beautiful. Roxy, turning over to you, we have another question from Laura Blanco. She says, hi, everyone. I'm Laura, a TV, digital media, and journalism senior at Barry University in Miami, Florida, right in your backyard. With graduation around the corner, what is your best advice for finding mentors in a place in the industry?
All right, awesome question from Laura. And I've been taking notes, by the way. All good journalists, everybody's curious, especially if you have a lot of things going on in your brain. I've been taking lots of notes. So I want to go back to some of that stuff, Marquise. But Laura, when it comes to finding that mentor, I think it's so important first and foremost to check yourself as an individual, right? And be honest with where you're at. I mentioned this earlier, but be honest with where you're at and where you want to be, and understand that there's a wealth of knowledge out there, and you'll get it. You'll get it, but you have to open up yourself to the fact that we don't know it all, right? And that there's so many people that have had so many rich experiences and have developed that expertise, and finding that person. I live by I have a list of some B's, things that you have to be proactive, be visible, be a team player, be a risk taker, be a positive, kind person, be a listener, and be your own biggest fan. But you have to be humble as well. And in that humility, you will open up yourself to finding that person, your head, your heart, your eyes, your ears, and receiving that criticism and receiving that feedback. I want to add to something that DeAndre was talking about as far as being a good mentor. I always think it's so important to pay tribute to the past, right? So whenever I've spoken with some mentees, I always tell them, let me be very clear that the knowledge that I am sharing with you has been gifted to me by some of the most brilliant minds in the business. I mentioned to you one mentor that I had years ago, and there's another mentor. That project that I mentioned earlier was this mentor number 2, another dear friend of mine. And this is wealth of knowledge that I've learned from them, and I've learned from people who I work with to this day. And I think it's so important to proof the performance, right? A POP, proof of performance, to say, hey, listen, I've learned a lot, but it's because I opened up myself to that wealth of knowledge, and I want to share it with you. So it's paying an ode to the past, so that they know that, hey, I've lived this and I've made the mistakes. So when it comes to finding that mentor, you have to open up yourself and be honest with yourself with the fact that you're going to make those mistakes. Bimone said it, right? She said, be you. I wrote that down. Be you to the 10th degree. And you have to take in those failures, because that failure, it's your first attempt at greatness, right? That's what you're trying to achieve. And as you have that moment that you've hit that roadblock, what have you learned from it? And you take that roadblock and you take that quote unquote setback, and that's when you talk to your mentor, who hopefully will become your sponsor. Why? Because you have stripped yourself down in that humility and said, you know what? I don't think I made the best decision here. What do you think I could have done better? And that's the honesty and the listening, and it's making yourself visible and making sure that person doesn't know your story. And you have to pitch yourself. You have to pitch yourself to that person and give them a reason to believe in where you want to be, and to believe in your growth and your future growth. But great question from Laura here at Barry in my backyard.
Absolutely. Thank you for that, Roxy. And coming back to you, B. Monet, this question's from Amanda Barberina. She asks, what is the most valuable piece of advice that you've received in your career, and how have you implemented it?
Ooh. Okay, Amanda, you coming from my life. I'll give you 2. One was from Ava DuVernay when I met her one time after her Selma debut. It was like in New York. And she was just like, you want to be here? You got to keep going. You got to keep doing your stuff. And so from there, in this very, ambitious way, I started to apply to film festivals. I would do 10 a night. I would send them a cover letter. I would send them photos from my film. I would ask for a waiver if they were willing to, grant me a waiver, because $50 after a while, that adds up. And so I just was at it. So I literally would do that like 5 nights a week, and I would get made fun of by my classmates because they're just like, you're insane. Like, why are you in the editing room? But they didn't know what I was doing. And so I think, again, to that tenacity and determination that the other panelists are talking about, that's kind of what you have to do. Like, if you know that you want to be in this business, and I'm not sure how you present in the world, but I think sometimes for folks of color, we know that we're not necessarily the ones who are dominating this industry. Entertainment is, we're very much, I would say, the faces, but not necessarily always the ones who are like calling the shots. And so because of that, I think you want to make sure that your work is standout, and you want to make sure that everything that you present is excellent. So even though I would get tons of rejection letters, there were certain people that said yes. And so I was just like, I'm just going to keep on going after those yeses. Like, I think in true athlete form, I just like became more of this like athlete person who was just like, okay, 10 a night. All right, maybe I can do 20, like always challenging myself. And I think when you do that, great results come from that. And because I do a lot of advertising, directing a lot of like ads and stuff, I got some harsh criticism from like a head of production one time. I didn't like what he said, but I think it was great. And he was just like, if you want to do more provocative, edgy work, that's what you got to present. So even if that means I got to scrape up some money, I got to ask a friend for a favor, sometimes you have to will things into existence. You know, unfortunately, sometimes people don't just take you at face value. Like, you can be dope and incredible all you want, and you can have things on your hard drive, but no one will know that unless you really put yourself out there. And so I was like, oh, all right. So I started to literally, I wiped my social media and started little by little archiving things that I felt like weren't powerful or weren't striking. And so, you know, sometimes you have to have that feedback and be okay with feedback. I think Roxanne alluded to that too. Feedback makes you better. You don't want to be the smartest person in the room because, hey, there are a lot of great people who want to help you. And so I think coming from that anchoring place can really create greatness for you. So I hope that it answered it. Sorry if I was long-winded. I'm stopping. I'm shutting up.
No, not at all. That was great. Coincidentally, I just saw a clip of Michael Jordan on social media, I want to say yesterday, and he says you only have two options when you take a shot, either make it or miss it. You know, and I think too often we kind of self-regulate ourselves because we're trying to, you know, not look a certain way when in reality we only have one opportunity. And I think the more and more you listen to anyone successful, at some point they took a risk. At some point they bet on themselves. And I think everyone on this panel has bet on themselves. And I think a message to everyone watching is just bet on yourself. I think there's so much to be gained in the struggle and the challenges and the missteps, but it will set you up for that next great thing. And DeAndre, coming over to you, because something you mentioned, I want to go back to. You mentioned a little bit of that nervousness when you had that big project. You mentioned a little bit of, or you alluded to, imposter syndrome. It's something a lot of people have when they're in a space where maybe they may be the only one who looks like them, or this is just an insurmountable kind of obstacle. And you found a way to overcome it. You mentioned joy, but can you talk a little bit more about where your mindset was at the beginning and where it was able to evolve to? Because a lot of young people are watching this and would love some advice.
Okay. Sorry. Well, if I'm going to be extremely real and transparent, I still deal with it to this day sometimes, but I feel like before it was much worse, you know, but after getting advice and just seeing the work that I've done in the past, and just seeing the growth that I had, like from when I first started, didn't even know how to use a camera, didn't know how to frame anything, to now for doing stuff for NBC and becoming a mentor in this space. It's just, you know, I think about that a lot, and I'm like, you know, I've really come so far, and honestly, this is the beginning, you know. And yeah, I mean, I feel like overcoming imposter syndrome, I feel like it's still a hard thing, but at the same time, it just gets better over time, you know? And I thought to myself that if I love what I do and I'm just terrified of it, that means I really love it. I'm meaning, like, if I am afraid to fail at a specific thing, say I'm editing something and I mess up something and I'm like, I just get so frustrated, or like I mess up something on a set, or I'm overthinking about my script. I'm basically in my craft stressing, but I know that I love it because of how much I'm stressing, you know? And I guess that's all I can say right now.
No, I appreciate that. And something you mentioned reminded me, a lot of people would give the advice of like being comfortable with being uncomfortable. And I think to your point about imposter syndrome was large before, and maybe it's still there, but it's a bit quieter, you continue to be comfortable being uncomfortable is only going to get smaller. And so I think working that kind of muscle and getting good at it is super important. Roxy, we have another question from Lauren Cabrera, who asked, can you discuss a time a mentorship or sponsorship relationship did not meet expectations and what you learned from that? Because you talked about, obviously, these positive experiences, but on the flip side, not everybody has such a great experience, and that's just the reality.
Yeah, I think there's definitely disappointing moments along the way where you think or you feel or you hope, you pray that you have the buy-in from colleagues and from leaders, and that's just not the case. And I think that's when you have a moment of self-reflection and you think, why? Why is this person why does this person not see me, not see what I bring to the table, not believe in my partnership or my talent in whatever way. And quite frankly, that's when you have to eliminate that negative space from your head and your heart, and you say, okay, well then, if you don't believe what I have to bring, then you're not meant for my circle. You're not my mentor. You're certainly not my sponsor. You're my colleague, and that's where it is. And I think you're going to encounter that, unfortunately, sometimes, depending on your space and your place, more times than not along the way. And that's when you go back to the belief in yourself. One of the B's I was talking about, you have to be your own fan. And then I'll take that back to what DeAndre was talking about, and in your self-talent, sometimes you kind of question yourself from where you're at. And that just means that you love what you do. That means that you're passionate about what you do because you want to put out the best product in whatever space it is that you're creating. And you're also you're buying into yourself, and you have to remind yourself, like, I'm my own biggest fan. I have a lot to learn, but I have a lot to offer as well. And if there are individuals who you work with, who are your managers, who don't see that, just give them a reason to see it for themselves eventually. And that's, you prove them, you prove to yourself why you are your own biggest fan, why you believe in your talent, and they'll see it. And you do that with integrity. You do that with kindness, and you do that with gaining in your expertise and gaining in your skill. When you have those moments of self-doubt, that's when you turn, to your mentor. And one of the other things that your sponsor does is not only advocates for you, they advocate to you. Sometimes you need that gut check, because guys, life is tough. You know what I mean? In this creative space where we're creating, whether it's a newscast or it's an incredible film or documentary or creative piece or music, whatever it is, it's tough. It's tough to think outside the box, to deliver something to our consumers that they haven't seen before, that they haven't experienced before, whether it's a news story or a beautiful creative piece, a cultural piece. It's tough to think in that space, and we doubt ourselves, and that's just human, right? But that's when you turn to that person. Who are you turning to at that moment? That's where you need to make that decision, and who you're turning to. And that's when your mentor and your sponsor checks you and says, you're great at what you do. Give yourself a second, and your creative juices will start flowing again.
Absolutely. And if you ever need any motivation, you can watch NBC6 Roxy in the morning, because she is just a ball of motivation. I'm over here ready to just jump into a basketball game or something. And just a reminder to our audience, if you have any questions for our panelists, please put them in the Q&A box. We see the inner scroller at the bottom. Justin, turning back to you, right, because the theme of this Next Level Summit is unlocking your leadership potential. So in what ways has mentoring others helped you develop your leadership skills?
I mean, I think it's a one-to-one for me. Everything's applicable. So, it's really the interaction there is exactly the same. You want to connect with your team and figure out, on an individual basis, and figure out what people need to succeed, and then figure out how you're going to give that to them and support them. And so yeah, I think it's it's really the same thing. It's really just about support, figuring out how to support the individuals on your team, and to be there for them. there's been a lot of talk, a lot of talk too about just, just being there for them. I think that's such a huge part of support is just, is just being there for whatever comes up for that individual on the team to make sure that they're getting the support that they need.
Yeah. And I think a lot of managers can take something away from that, Justin, right? I think a lot of people almost forget that we're humans first, right? I mean, the past 4 years, we've dealt with so much. And a lot of people are just crying out for empathy. And I think to something you said, it's just a matter of remember when you were in this position, the things that you wanted, desired. And I think a great leader is able to put themselves in that mindset and help the next person, hopefully make it easier. I've had experience in the past where I've had a manager, boss, or supposed mentor said, "Oh, I had it rough, so I'm going to make sure you have it rough." And it's not necessarily how it should be. Some people think that's the best way, but I don't ascribe to that. But thank you for that, Justin. I want to get a response from both B. Monet and DeAndre, since you're both at different points in your filmmaking journey. So Narisa Theobald asks, I have a question for the filmmakers. What was your most influential skill building course or courses or seminars that took your filmmaking to another level, aside from the hard knocks of making your own film? And maybe I'll start with B. Monet and then I'll come to DeAndre.
Oh man, I was thinking about it. Okay, maybe that one. Okay, so the first film that I made in film school, basically we have to make a film 4 minutes without sound. But basically if you end up watching a lot of NYU filmmakers, I think it's like a trend with our work is that a lot of us don't like to have a lot of dialogue in our work. Anyways, fast forward to, there were a lot of things that ended up happening on the set, like had to get extras. It was so cold. We were filming like on a bridge and like there were so many things. But I say all that to say doing a lot of pre-production, meaning like just planning ahead, I think helps you in your filmmaking. So if you can plan just like think of all the things that might go wrong. And if you don't want to think that way, get a producer who's very anal that way. Because sometimes I think as visionary folks, we're just thinking about, oh, I want it to be pretty and I want to do this and I want to do that. And we're not thinking about all of the other things behind the scenes that you kind of you need someone who's really great at that. I'm all right at it, but I have people who assist me in that. And also I would just say, like, even right now I'm doing a short film with a studio, and being an empowering leader, I think, is really important. So even though we're dealing with a lot of constraints and a lot of just things that have been thrown at us, I think empowering people and not leading with them, like don't lead with constraints, right? And like talking about their positives, I think empowers different people and collaborators to just go forth and be great with what they have. So what I mean by that is shielding them almost like in this motherly way, or a father. I'm not a mother or father, but I think when you are the captain of the ship as the writer director, you kind of don't want to let your children know about all the things, right? You just want to kind of feed all the positivity into them. So I think that it's important as a leader to kind of speak life into the people that you're working with, so that they know that you believe in their strengths, their talents, that they can come to you for anything. And even if there are challenges that you guys need to work through, I think that's really important to like establish that. So I say all that to say the first class that I took at NYU helped with that. But I think kind of what DeAndre is talking about is what helps with imposter syndrome is just doing the thing over and over and over again, so that you know how dope you are. You don't know how dope you are unless you keep practicing. So filmmaking is a thing where you kind of have to keep at it. So
basically, in short, go to NYU Film School. Thank you for that.
I didn't say all that. Look, that's a lot of money.
DeAndre, over to you.
Before I answer it, can you elaborate with skill building courses, like classes or like any?
Yeah, anything you took. I mean, maybe it was YouTube University. Maybe it was a book someone told you about. maybe it was a website that you use to kind of figure things out. But I think for a lot of people, they want to make films, but they don't even know where to start. And so what are some things that, got you going?
I have two examples I can say. I think the first one that came to mind is editing. I have not ever taken an editing class at all, right? When I started doing event highlight videos for Urgent Inc. and anything else in Urgent Inc., I just sat in front of the computer and just said, okay. And I opened up Premiere and I said, okay, how in the world do I use this thing? So as soon as you said YouTube University, yeah, boom. I just went on YouTube and just learned how to like do certain things, and I practiced them. And I'm gonna get to the second thing, which is getting a camera. I got my first camera around the end of 2018, and I know Urgent taught me how to use like Canon cameras, but I'm like, I need something different. I need a different operating system so I can learn it myself. So maybe I can one day teach the interns how to use it and everything. And I also like Panasonic. That's the camera I have. But yeah, and just going out there and literally practicing over and over. That's how my skills got like built over time. I got gigs because of how good my shots were, and my shots got better because of the bad ones, if that makes any sense. I look over the footage, I'm like, oh, this is too shaky. I try to be a perfectionist, but I guess in like using a camera, that's like the best way. Not the best way, but I don't try to be a perfectionist, but I try, I guess in my own way, I try to be perfect, and that's how, I don't know, like with building skills, like that's how I just got better over time. By just literally just doing the thing. I was never in a traditional class or anything for that. So I just went ahead and just did it.
Yeah, like Nike, just do it.
Yeah.
Well, thank you so much, DeAndre, Justin, B. Monet, and Roxy for a great conversation. And thank you all watching from home or work. Thank you all to the audience. You can visit NBCUacademy.com for more journalism advice and free educational content, as well as more original reporting from NBCU Academy storytellers like Jay Valle. Coming up at noon Eastern is the main stage. We'll have a fireside chat with the leadership team behind NBC Universal's much anticipated coverage of the 2024 Paris Olympics. Then join us as we introduce The Edit, a new collaboration between NBCU Academy and Adobe. Later, you'll have a choice of 3 amazing career expo rooms where you'll have the chance to practice a leadership interview, learn more about essential leadership skills, and get more info about storytelling with Adobe. Right now, you have a few minutes to take a break, but come right back because you don't want to miss it.
Thank you all for having us. Appreciate it. Marquise, thank you.
Thank you so much, everyone.
Yes, thank you. So nice meeting everybody.